After taking way longer than was actually necessary to announce it, the Washington Justice have officially locked in their 2023 roster. The boys rocking the red, white, and blue this year are Benbest and Mir at tank, Teru and FDgod at support, then alexyOWL and Flora at DPS. So, what do we think about this team? From a general standpoint, it's not anything that excites you greatly. There are things that are pretty notable that are interesting to look at for sure, such as the fact that Benbest and FDgod, previous French legends, are making their return to OWL after what feels like forever. And of course you have alexyOWL, who's probably going to be seen as the star player of this team, and he's going to look to build upon his excellent rookie season from 1 year prior on the Hangzhou Spark. So there are things that you could consider likable about the Washington Justice. The only problem is, when looking at their team as a whole, they do lack in the star power department, which is an issue when considering how loaded the West is this year. It's a tough call to make, and it's really hard to see them not being more towards the bottom half of the standings in the conference. They will be underdogs for sure, at least on paper. So, I don't really know what to expect from this team. Let's break down this roster piece by piece to get a better idea of what we're working with here. And the best place to start would be with more of the surprising and out of left field pickups. So, how about we talk about our guy, the Giga Chad, Benbest. Benbest coming back to OWL is a very interesting pickup. The Giga Chad supermodel is going to make his grand return to OWL after over 2 years since his leaving of the Paris Eternal. It took a really long time, but he's finally getting his real second chance to prove himself at the Overwatch League level. It is a new beginning for this guy. The game around him has changed a lot. He's changed a lot. He left the league on a high note, but unfortunately didn't get a lot of interest from other teams over the last 2 years, so he's had to work hard, work his butt off to get back, and I'm happy to see all of that work pay off, for sure. He was a reliable player the last time he was here in 2020, and I'd love to see him pick up where he left off. But the thing is, it is really hard to expect that level of play from him. He wasn't all that incredible during his Contenders journey these last few years, based off of what I can tell, and also had the advantage of playing next to some amazing players on Paris when he did reach his peak. I'm not saying that he didn't do anything at all to contribute, but it helps when you have people like Sparkle, Hanbin, and Fielder to back you up, you know what I mean? This Washington team that he is on, they're going to be underdogs, they're not nearly as deep, they don't have any real star players except for maybe alexyOWL, and it's just a lot less likely he's going to get that top level support. He's going to have to pick it up big time because there are less playmakers. He's going to have to do more to help his team win games, and I don't know if he has it in him to do that. Skill-wise, this position has evolved in so many ways since the swap to Overwatch 2. The competition is a lot greater than it was in 2020, and the tank position in general is just relied on a lot more these days. Benbest faces an uphill battle in a lot of ways. He's going to have to work especially hard, and his team's going to have to play even better than we think. Otherwise, I fear that he may not be making it past this year, and he might not even be a consistent starter in general this year. But hey, I have made the mistake of doubting Benbest in the past, and he's made me pay for it, so I'll give him a chance first. He knows what it takes to be a starter in this league, so let's see what he can do. The good news is, if he doesn't play all that amazing, at least you have another option in Mir at your disposal if you want to try him. Mir isn't the greatest option himself either, but his hero pool is a lot different than Benbest, so it gives you a lot of coverage on what you want to run, which is a good thing. There's not too much pressure on either individual, because they can back each other up, but even then, they aren't going to be the greatest at everything. I have concerns maybe about how a Diva or Sigma composition goes, for example. There are question marks with their hero pools, but having two guys there at least gives you a better shot, and Mir did show that he can pop off with the right level of support on things like Junker Queen, Doomfist, and Orisa, so I don't mind the Mir pickup. It's not a bad idea to give him another shot. It's just a matter of if he can keep up with some of these top players. It's just like Benbest. It's the same level of concern. It feels to me like both players are kind of a risky signing to go for. I feel like no matter what, you're not going to have a good backup plan. You won't be totally confident ever unless you have the right meta. you don't have that reassurance factor, which scares me. Now let's talk about the DPS line, which I find a lot more interesting, and it's for the simple fact that they went out and signed alexyOWL, which is actually a good pickup. I'm a little disappointed that no better team got alexyOWL, but at least he's getting his very much deserved second shot in OWL because he was an excellent flex DPS in his rookie year, often being a great counterpart for Shy, which is a statement. He was able to stand out while playing with one of the best DPS players in the world. He showed off a pretty good hero pool, especially in the first half of the season, often flexing onto lots of different projectile things, picking up the Tracer when needed, and then during the playoffs he picked up his game a lot yet again and made a lot of clutch plays on that Reaper. We know this guy can be a solid starter at this level, and now that he is on his own, without somebody like Shy, he has a real opportunity to be the shining star and centerpiece of his new team. From a skill point, you'd likely consider him to be the best player on this roster. No matter how Washington does, I'm expecting alexyOWL to have a good season. He's just so reliable. I think he'll be able to stand out no matter what. I just hope that it's not always in a losing effort, you know? The one thing I will say, though, which is great, is alexyOWL is already kind of used to not having that great of a backline supporting him. So in an instance where the support line for Washington is maybe just average, he can probably still be just fine. And he does have previous experience with Teru, so that's going to help him. Maybe those two can really pop off and help carry this team to victory. I just hope that alexyOWL does okay on a mixed roster. He's already done it with Chinese players. Now let's see if he can do it with some people who speak English. And this challenge also, of course, applies to alexyOWL's DPS partner Flora, as I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this will be his first time ever playing on a mixed roster with English speakers, so we're going to have to see how he does in that regard, but that's not the main thing to focus on with Flora, as a lot of people, including myself, are not all that enthusiastic about Flora joining this team, because he did have quite the down year in 2022, often playing at an average to below average level on the hit scan role. Flora was just such an exciting player in his rookie year. He had such a great start to his career. He seemed like a rising star, and going up with Yaki during the next year, it felt like maybe he could take it to the next level, be a part of an exciting duo, but he just could not deliver, and often it felt like he was struggling and not getting the job done, even against some just decent to average level hit scan players. But in all defenses to Flora, to give him a bit of a break, he did play on a really bad NYXL team, so he can't get all of the blame. Maybe he just needs a change of scenery. Sometimes that is enough to give a player that boost of confidence they need, a new system, a refresher, that gets you back on the right track. It's also going to be interesting to once again watch him line up next to a really reliable and consistent DPS player that is arguably better than him. The whole Yaki experiment didn't go too well. They didn't seem to synergize all that well. Yaki seemed to be the only one carrying his weight a lot of the time. But if there's any good news for these Justice fans out here, it's that it probably won't be like that for the simple fact that alexyOWL and Flora have previous synergy. They played together on Team Diamond back in the day, so there's a good chance this pans out a lot better than the Yaki-Flora experiment. Regardless, this is a really important year for Flora. He's gotta improve and get back to that level if the Justice want to be somewhat competitive. It is very important. Okay, so that does it for your DPS and tanks. Let's talk about this backline real quick, shall we? The more interesting pickup is absolutely FDgod. He's in a similar boat to Benbest, where it's been a little bit since we've seen him, and there's some questions on whether or not he actually deserved to come back here. He wasn't doing out of this world in contenders. He's still a decent player. He's still someone that's really likable. But ever since he left the Shock, it's kind of left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. So I'm curious to see if he can do well on his third team. Can he get back to that level that we saw on Paris? Can he reawaken that synergy and firepower that we saw him play with next to Benbest? I'm happy to see FDgod back, just like with Benbest, but both of them have a lot to prove this year because it's been a while since they've been in the league, and no one else has really wanted them up until now. There's a lot on your shoulders here. There's a lot of pressure riding on you to continue your career, basically. And with FDgod in particular, the Shock experiment was a pretty epic failure. A lot of the time he was riding the bench. He didn't synergize the best with Violet, and his hero pool seemed to have gotten weaker too as he felt more and more just like a Lucio guy. And another problem on top of that I'm a little worried about is that Teru happens to play a similar style to Violet in the sense that he's also a rather aggressive playmaking flex support. FDgod, it didn't seem like he did that well playing next to another aggressive support player. He needed someone more passive like Fielder to really bring out the best in him. I am very curious to see if FDgod can be reliable or not. It's the same thing, he's playing on a mixed roster again, but this time he has his boy Benbest again, so maybe that can help him. He's got coaching that he gets along with, but it's an uphill battle for sure. Speaking of Taro, by the way, he's the last guy we have to cover in this video, and I'm not exactly sure how I feel. Part of me feels like Taro should not be a full-time starter, and that it would have been better off if he signed with a team where there was another flex support option, but he did show us that he does have quite a bit of potential on the flex support role during his short time on the Spark. He had some decent pop-offs on the Zen during the regular season, and then his Kiriko was really fun to watch, very aggressive, but also very smart at the same time. So maybe there is room for Taro to be a reliable starter in this league still. I just don't know if he'll be a star player, and that's kind of what the Justice need right now. They need stars. He has the synergy with alexyOWL, that's going to help. They can be aggressive and do things together, but that may not be enough. There might not be enough cohesion and star power on this team for him to really show off his true potential. I don't love the Taro signing, but I do kind of dig it. I think it's a decent budget signing to make. Not a lot of people were going to be interested in him, but he showed off some great potential on the Spark, so you could get some decent bang for your buck here, and I think Taro very well could be one of the best players on this team. So really, for the Washington Justice, based off of what they have, not really a lot of room to be super confident in them, right? You'd expect them to be one of the worst teams in the league just based off of what the West is looking like right now. You never know what could happen because in a way they do have 2020 Paris Eternal vibes. You have a couple of French players, you have a bunch of Korean players, some decent coaching on hand, but it's probably not going to end up with the same result, let's be honest. There's just not nearly as much talent, and this league has a lot of talent in the West. It is very loaded, it's very top-heavy, so I don't know if they have what it takes, unfortunately. It may not sound like it based off of the overall vibe in this video, but I am praying that the Justice play above expectations this year. Nobody likes it when there's bottom feeders. We want as competitive as a league as we possibly can get. And a lot of their guys are likable, and I want to cheer for them. FDgod, Benbest, I want to see them get back on the right track. I want to see alexyOWL continue to play at a very high level in his career. There's a lot to hope for and look forward to with this Justice team. I'm just not all that confident they can get there, sadly. But maybe you have a different opinion, which is where I turn things over to you. What do you think about the 2023 Washington Justice roster? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Do you think they're going to suck? Be above expectations? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to stay up to date with all things Overwatch League related, including roster reveals just like this, give this video a big fat thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you're new. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.